might be pushed aside in favor of a transitional government.
Yes, and I think that momentum grows every day, and that is why we're seeing more people out on the street today than we saw last Tuesday. So I do think that these people think that there are gains that are being made, very important gains that are being made. We've seen a vice president for the first time in 30 years. We're seeing the idea of constitutional reform being put up into the air, and we're seeing changes. And that is why when I was speaking to the newcomers, if you like, the people who are coming today to join the protest for the first day, they're saying that we haven't been in these protests so far because we didn't believe that something will really happen until now. And as we see these concessions, however limited they are, we feel like they're gearing up to something. They are building blocks towards us getting our final aim. And if anything, the more these concessions are made, it seems the more the people flood in because they truly believe that change is coming.
Thank you very much. Shireen Tadros reporting there live from Cairo as we watch these images of Tahrir Square, the epicenter of anti-government demonstrations, now in their third week. And Hosni Mubarak still saying put. He is in fact sought to seize the initiative from protesters in Tahrir Square, offering a pay raise for government employees, announcing a date for opening the stock market and projecting really an air of normalcy in Cairo. But all those concessions falling on deaf ears. The demonstrations continue in Cairo, also in the second largest city, Alexandria, where, as you can see on those pictures, live pictures from Alexandria, thousands have also gathered today waving Egyptian flags and also calling for Mubarak to stand down. Our correspondent is there. Give us an idea of the mood today in Alexandria.
Well, as it has been throughout most of these 2 weeks and entering the third week fully, it is very celebratory. If you can hear the nationalistic songs being played in the background, you can see the flags being waved, mothers bringing their children out, young men bringing out their elderly parents with them, families gathering for what they say is a simple celebration of Egyptian democracy, one that they've waited for decades to be given the opportunity to express themselves. Now, obviously, there is that sense that they have been going on for 2 weeks, and continuously throughout the chanting, those leading the chants would ask the crowd, "Are you tired yet?" And the crowd would respond, "No, we're not. We're not leaving until Mubarak leaves." So despite the fact that it has taken some time and the key demand of the protesters that Mubarak steps down or in fact is kicked out of the country hasn't been met, despite that, they do feel they're building momentum. They do feel they're gaining spirit and gaining popularity on the Egyptian street, and that's what's spurring them on.
And so how are they really able to keep the momentum going as well in Alexandria? Because there had been some concerns in the last 2 days that this momentum in fact was falling a bit, and that people were getting tired, not just the people protesting but also the people who were trying to return to everyday life, to a normal life, to lead a normal life in Egypt. How are they able to galvanize the crowds there to come out and continue demonstrating? How are they able to organize themselves?
Well, we've seen throughout the past couple of weeks, whenever it seems like the pro-democracy, anti-government momentum, an event has happened or someone has spoken which has reignited that fuel, if you will. So this time last week, when they managed to gather millions in Tahrir and 1 million in Alexandria, people thought that they had reached the ceiling, but then those who the pro-democracy camp claimed were thugs, when they came and attacked them, that gave them sympathy, which swung back people in their favor. Yesterday there was that feeling at midday that because there was some sort of return to normality, that maybe the wind was no longer in the back of the pro-democracy campaigners. However, in the evening, the release of Wael Ghanem, a famous online activist, if you will, his interview, and the first time Egyptian television sets broadcast some of the most graphic images of these 2-week uprisings, that in turn reignited it, and a lot of people, as my colleague in Cairo was just mentioning, have come out on the streets today for the first time in 2 weeks. So that gave, and there's another point to mention here, which is that many of the pro-democracy people are saying, well, the return to normality proves that it wasn't us, or it wasn't the pro-democracy side that was stopping the country. It was actually the government that closed the banks, it was the government that shut down the internet, the government which blocked the phones, and therefore it is the government you should be angry with. We didn't stop you from continuing your normal life. And that message has resonated across Egypt because people have have realized that actually it was the government indeed that tried to do it.
Okay, thank you very much for speaking to us and giving us the view there from Alexandria, where we saw in those pictures there, old and young are again taking to the streets today to demonstrate against Mubarak and call for his resignation. Of course, the international community watching the situation in Egypt very closely. We've been getting more international reaction. The UK Foreign Minister William Hague has commented on his country's support for reform in Egypt. He was speaking during a visit to Tunisia. Al Jazeera's Nazanin Musheri has more.
We understand you're not travelling to Egypt. You're here showing solidarity with the Tunisian people about their revolution and their transition to democracy. Why is Britain not open to speaking about a quicker transition in Egypt?
We've made our views, and our Prime Minister's made our views very clear. We've called for an orderly transition to a more broadly based government, real, visible and comprehensive change that allows the people of Egypt to sort out their differences together in a free and democratic way. And that is what we continue to call for. The Vice President Suleiman has made some announcements this morning which are moving in that direction and which we should welcome as moving in the direction that we have called for. But we will continue to call on the Egyptian authorities to keep moving in that direction, bringing the Egyptian people together and recognizing their legitimate political and economic grievances.
Well, still with us here in the studio is Sabri Hafez, is an Egyptian professor of comparative literature at Qatar University. Thank you very much for staying with us and witnessing all of these events with us. What do you make of the reaction of the international community? We heard there the British Foreign Secretary William Hague. The United States has seemed to have softened its stance in the last 2 days or so. Last week they were talking about a quick transition, and now they're talking about a process of dialogue with the opposition. What do you make of the international community's reaction to the events in Egypt?
I think the international community's reaction to the event has been disappointing, to say the least. Particularly, the reaction of the United States have been wavering and giving mixed messages. It was very really telling that Frank Wisner,
yeah, the former ambassador to Egypt.
Yes, the previous ambassador to Egypt, who actually gave the counter message that Frank Wisner was in the pay of the Egyptian government for a year. His lawyer's company has been assisting Mubarak's regime. He is a member of the Pharaonic American insurance company. He is on the board of the American University in Cairo. He has been actually a beneficiary of Mubarak's corrupt regime, and to send a person like that who had no credibility whatsoever and comes out to say messages counter to the messages that has been laid by President Obama himself gives the Egyptian not only mixed messages but confirms their suspicion of the double standard of America when dealing particularly with the Arab world. Right. The double standard, the various scheming is not confined, of course, to the West. It's also on the government camp. What we see now, we see two camps are trying to outwit each other.
Who's got the upper hand right now, you think, when you talk about two camps? We've got the protesters on the one hand. They're certainly bigger in number.
Yes.
Then you have the government on the other hand making all these concessions. Who's got the upper hand?
The government on the other hand making all these concessions, trying to bribe people with this 15%, and the people are shrewd enough to go and take the 15% and go straight to the demonstration. Those who are getting the upper hand are the demonstrators. This is mainly because the Egyptian people gradually, it took really the perseverance of the demonstrators and the continuity of their revolution to bring out so many hesitant Egyptians, to bring out what they used to term as the silent majority. The silent majority is no longer silent. The silent majority has actually announced their view and said it wide and clear, loud and clear. we want Mubarak out.
And certainly the fear is also gone, because scenes like these would be unimaginable in Egypt just a few years ago.
Not only the fear has gone, the fear has traded places. The fear is now in the government camp. It used to be on the side of the people. People were oppressed by this diabolic machine of oppression of the state oppressive machine. And now the fear is now in the government camp. That's why we see the confusion, we see the mixed messages, we see the fear even in the American camp, where we have all of these mixed messages. They are afraid that the change in Egypt might